To thee, O champion leader and trophy bearer, O Saint George, do we offer a hymn of praise.
Christos anesti ek nekron, thanaton patisas, cetis sentis primasi, zoin arisamenos.
Okay, the reason I told you that this lesson is current. Something happened this past week in Africa, which has a direct bearing on the worldwide Orthodox Church. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah. The Patriarch of Alexandria, and let's just understand that Africa, there are two Orthodox groups in Africa. There's the Coptic, which are the largest group in Egypt, and that's called the Oriental Orthodox. And then there's the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate of Alexandria, which is in communion with us. Greek Orthodox Patriarch of Alexandria was really a very nominal church until about 50 years ago. These two student seminarians from, I believe it was either Uganda or Kenya, they were studying in Rome to become Roman Catholic priests, and they literally discovered the Orthodox Church. They studied it, and they decided they wanted to be Orthodox. And they went to that time, the Patriarch of Alexandria, asking to be ordained, and he would not ordain them. I don't think it was so much because they were black. I think it was more because they weren't Greek, whatever. And they kept coming to him. And you know in the story in the Bible where the woman keeps coming to the judge and asking for justice, and finally the judge says, give her justice, and his assistant says, why, you're not a just man? He goes, no, I'm just tired of her nagging me just to get rid of her. So to get rid of them, he ordained them. They went back to, I believe it was Kenya, and they started to preach the church to the local people. The church did very well in Africa. The reason the Orthodox Church did so well in Africa from these missionaries is it was not considered by the African natives as a religion brought to them by the white man from Europe. It was something from their own people. And the church grew and grew and grew and grew. So today that the Patriarchate of Alexandria, the overwhelming majority of people that are part of this Patriarchate are sub-Saharan Africans. They are not Greek, they are not white people, they are sub-Saharan Africans. So, and just to digress, because I want you to know this, if you go to Constantinople, the amount of Orthodox Christians in Turkey is negligible. However, because of the war in Ukraine, so many people have left Ukraine and come to Turkey. People have left other Eastern European countries and gone to Turkey for safety, believe it or not, that today there are maybe 100,000 Eastern Orthodox Christians in Turkey that are under the Patriarchate of Constantinople, okay? Because when you go to a country where there is a patriarchal see, or it's an autonomous church, you become part of that see. For example, when I went to Lebanon in 1971, I was visiting with the Archbishop of Tripoli, and he said, come on, we're going to somebody's house. It's their name day. And they were Greek people. Their background was Greek, but they were Lebanese, but their background was Greek, and they knew they were Greek. And I said to him, well, do they go to a Greek church? He said, what? I said, do they go to a Greek church? Like in America, we have Greek churches, Russian church. He said, no, they go to our church. They don't have ethnic churches over there. They're all part of the Church of Antioch. So this week, the Patriarch of Alexandria unilaterally ordained a woman to become a deaconess. Now, there is an ancient order, if you want to say, in the Orthodox Church of a deaconess. However, the discussion is really out on that was, what were they? Were they liturgical deacons? Were they basically people that helped in ministries for women? The overwhelming consideration is that the deaconess was a woman that was set aside for a particular ministry. For example, if you were baptizing a woman, okay, the deaconess would anoint her with oil because it wasn't proper for a man to even touch a woman, okay? If a woman was sick, the deaconess would minister to her because she was a woman. But deaconesses were never the liturgical equivalent of deacons. Okay, it's very important to understand they were not the liturgical, that means they didn't serve at the altar. So this epistle today speaks about that they wanted to have people, because what was happening, the church was growing, And all you had in those days, you had bishops, okay? Priests didn't even exist. They were bishops. So they said, this town, for example, let's say we had a bishop in Orlando, okay, but now we want to open up a church in Oviedo or Oviedo. Say, this is not a town to have, it's not big enough place to have a bishop here. So they said we need to have people to help, because what they were doing is there was a complaint between the Greek and the Jewish Christians. And they were complaining that the women wanted the widows, because the church took care of widows. Okay, that was part of our ministry, to help the widows. And they were saying that the Greek widows or the Jewish widows were getting more food. And the apostles said it's not proper for us to be waiting on table, not because they were above waiting on table, because they had more important work to do. Okay? I can honestly tell you that, and I'm not complaining, just give you an example. I've cleaned the urinal in this church. I've cleaned the toilets in this church because they needed to be cleaned. We didn't have people that would clean them. It's not beneath me to clean the urinal, but the point is that I would be better off doing liturgical or priestly things than cleaning the toilets. Okay, so they basically said, it's not proper for us to lead off the word and preaching the word to serve tables. So they chose 7 good character men. The word deacon, diakonos in Greek, means a server, like a waiter. If you want to have fun, the next time you go to a restaurant and the girl comes up and says, I'll be taking care of you, you could say to her, are you the deaconess? And she'll probably flip out because she knows what you're talking about. But deacon meant a server. So the deaconess was a person that had this particular ministry. Going ahead and ordaining a woman to be a female equivalent of a liturgical deacon is not right on many levels. One of the levels, and this is very, very important, the Orthodox Church, unlike the Roman Church, is a church of collegiality. What does that mean? It means the bishops get together as in a collegial or in a harmonious situation, and they pray and they work out whatever the question might be. That's always been our way, okay? And we can prove that by Scripture. For those of you that are just, or come from a Bible-based background, the first issue that had to be resolved was whether or not non-Jews, men, when they became Christians, had to be circumcised. Now, I don't know how much ladies can understand this, but as a man, I can understand the idea of circumcising me as an adult. No, okay? So this became a real problem. And some said they did. Basically, they had to become Jews first before they could become followers of Jesus. And some said no. And they had a council in Jerusalem. It's in the Acts of the Apostles. And Peter, Paul, Timothy, they were all there. James was there, who was the local bishop. And they went back and forth about did they, didn't they. Peter said they didn't need to. Paul said they didn't need to. Others said they did. And James, the bishop, says, this is my decision. He didn't say it was Peter's decision, because this proves that St. Peter was not considered the head of the church, because if he was, his position would have carried the day. So St. James said, no, they don't need to be circumcised. So Orthodoxy has always been a church that where there was something that had to be resolved, you didn't unilaterally decide it. Okay? That would be like, for example, we live in the United States of America. We have 50 states, besides territory. We have 50 states. Imagine, and this happened, of course, during the war between the North and the South, okay? Some states decided unilaterally to change what was going on with the whole country, okay? You cannot have Alabama deciding on its own what they want to do. I'm not about states, there's things that belong to the state. I don't mean that. I'm talking on a federal level, okay? So the Orthodox Church has always been a church where they got together. This has been brought up by the Greek Archdiocese. There's a study going on in what was the role of a deaconess. But what the Patriarch of Alexandria did is he just usurped the whole thing. He circumvented it and went ahead and made a woman a deaconess. And the problem with that is, what can a deacon become? A priest. And women cannot be priests, because the priesthood, the liturgical priesthood, is for men. Okay? Where do we get that from? We get that from tradition. We get that from the Bible. There's no mention in the Bible of any woman being a priest. Okay? This is always the way it was.
I have a question. So the Patriarch of Alexandria is a canonical patriarch. So the sacraments that he has, like communion, baptism, they have grace in it. So when he ordained the female deaconess to like a clergy level, was there any special grace that passed on to this woman deacon that would pass on to a male deacon?
I don't know. I don't think that's a question of the Holy Spirit. What we're concerned about is that when you do things unilaterally like that, okay, you cause a schism in the church, because there were those that will not recognize that, okay? He did it. Why he did it? You see, because we don't, for example, let me take, is Cindy here? Okay, are any women here that would consider themselves to be feminists? Women? Feminists? Anybody? Yeah, okay. So Gabby's a feminist. So what they did in order to appease that feminist mentality is they went ahead and made this woman a deacon. Okay, that is not the proper procedure. This needs to be studied. Okay? Because now, if you had, for example, let's just take it on, could be. Let's say they said, okay, we're going to have women deacons. The only way that could pass, in my opinion, is that they cannot become priests. A deacon can be ordained to a priest. If you have a woman deacon, you say, okay, she's going to be a deaconess. I'm not saying they would do it, I'm just saying they could say that. But she cannot become a priest. That's a real problem, is a woman, because deaconess can very easily morph into woman priest.
And deaconesses wouldn't be allowed into the altar if they're menstruating, right?
Okay, well, that's another problem. Okay, women, according to scriptures, this is in the Bible. Okay, women, when they were, menstruating, Clay, they were, if you read the Bible, in the Old Testament especially, when women were menstruating, they couldn't do Zippo. They weren't supposed to go outside. No, that's true. They weren't supposed to go outside. They couldn't ever go in the temple or the synagogue. And we have rules in the Orthodox Church going back a long time that women, when they menstruated, they weren't to go to church. They weren't to kiss icons. They weren't to receive Holy Communion. They were not to kiss the cross. Why? Because the Jewish mentality was that they were what, Sophia? Unclean. Okay? And thank God that the Church of Antioch looked at this and said, wait a minute, her body is doing what God designed it to do. There's no way she automatically becomes unclean because her body does. You can't, I don't think there's any way, unless you pass menopause, there's no way of avoiding that. That's going to happen, unless, of course, you get pregnant. That's going to happen. That's a natural thing to happen. So the women, but the question is, she couldn't go in the altar. When can a woman go in the altar? What? What did she say?
After she's old.
After she's old. Say what? Have to be your age? No. Say what? No. We're talking about the physical.
When she's not menstruating and she's not sexually active.
Right. She's not menstruating. Could be at any age. I mean, you don't have to be Monique's age. It could be, I don't know what different women that happens, okay? And secondly, she's not sexually active. Even if she's married and she's past that menstruation, if she's sexually active, because a priest is not supposed to have liturgy if he was sexually active the day before, the day of, the day after. Believe me, I know this, okay? So, the point was that these are physical things that distract us from the spiritual reality. But a woman, like, for example, Tatiana, she could go, if she wanted to, she could go in and clean the altar. I know that sounds very, very mundane, and I'm sorry, but what would she, like, say she wanted to clean the altar? Well, she's past her menstruation, obviously, and I don't think she's sexually active. Okay, she better not be. Anyhow, so she could go in and clean the altar. Okay, I know that's very almost like, well, that's what we're good for. It's not that. Okay, we have men that clean the altar. All right, but what he did, more than could they become priests, he shouldn't have done it alone. When you do things on your own, that's what we wanted. That's how the Melkites came about. The Eastern Rite Catholics, they were Orthodox. Okay, they unilaterally in Syria and Lebanon, these dioceses, decided to become in union with the Pope. That caused a schism. and they were no longer part of the Orthodox Church. So we have to be very careful when we do things, even if we're a patriarch, and I'm not chastising the patriarch, who am I, but I'm just saying that's what brings about problems in the church. Because you could come and say, well, in fact, someone could say, well, I want to be a deaconess, and they go to Egypt, and they find the patriarch of Alexandria, and he makes him a deaconess. Okay? That's not the way to do these things, okay? Plus, I don't know anything. I'm sure the woman's a very good woman, okay? I'm assuming, because I saw her in full deacon vestments, that he made her the female equivalent of a liturgical deacon. All right. What happened to the role of deaconesses? Where did it go?
It fizzled out because the church didn't see a need for it anymore.
It fizzled out because of nuns. The nuns began to do the roles of the deaconess. Okay, so once the nuns came into play, so to speak, there was no need to have a deaconess anymore. Okay, now let me give you a modern understanding of this, because any of you, many would know this. To this day, and I've been blessed to be the priest 51 years. I've been a priest almost 52 years. I do not ever have a woman. If a woman comes to my office, the door stays open. If those of you that come to confession, you know that when you come to confession, the door stays open. Because we live in a society that comes up with all sorts of craziness. Okay, so if the door is open, you can't say such and such happened. Okay, this is a reality. So because in the priesthood, we have to try and always be above, even a child. Okay, even a child, okay? I am not going to put myself alone with a child. You're sorry, I'm saying, like, one of the older, you're not going to do that because you don't know in our society what that can lead to, or people can say this or that. You've got to be above reproach, okay? So I think that if they bring back the role of deaconess, and it's under study, I do not believe, I hope it would not be, and if it became a liturgical deacon, let's say first of all, you couldn't be a young woman. You can't be a young woman because you have your menstruation, okay? And if she's married, well, if she was married, let's say she was past the menstruation and she's sexually active, as long as she would be, I'm just hypothesizing, as long as she would follow the same rules as a priest or a deacon, not to have had sexual activity the day before, the day of, and the day after the Holy Liturgy, in that sense, yeah, it would be okay. The problem is she can't become a priest. And I would almost guarantee that if they ever do this, they're going to have that in there, you could not become a priest. I know people that wanted to become deacons, okay, and the archbishop at that time did not see them as becoming a priest. He said, I will make you a deacon, but you will be a permanent deacon. You're never going to be more than a permanent deacon. Now, that's not always, in most cases, they become deacon, then they eventually become a priest, okay? But I think you could get around that as far as you can't get around the menopause. But even, okay, let's say she was not, it wasn't that time of month. Again, it's over my pay scale. But I'm just saying that my main concern with that is that it could morph into, and that's what's going to happen in the Roman Church. The Roman Church now, they have deacons that are married, okay? They're eventually going to morph into married priests. Now, that's not a problem for us. It's a problem for them because they require celibacy. But they can see the writing on the wall that those married deacons could eventually become married priests, okay? That's one of the reasons that I don't think that the Episcopal Church, they have women bishops, okay? You can see how far this goes, okay? Now, is there a ministerial role for women in the Orthodox Church? Most definitely. Most definitely. I'll give you an example. We had a family that the woman had a miscarriage, and she fell apart. I had a hard time trying to understand the depth of her pain. Until a woman came and said, Father, you have no idea what that does to a woman to have I didn't. I'm a man. I don't know what it would be like to have that, okay? So in that sense, a woman can be very ministering to another woman, whereas the priest would not necessarily know that. Just like I don't understand the pain of drug addiction. I was never a drug addict, but I would, if I had somebody that said, look, I know what withdrawal is like, I know what do you say, getting straight? I don't know what the word is. Detox. Yeah, I never went through a detox, okay? You see what I'm trying to say? So those people can understand a little bit better. The church has specialized ministries The ministry is not just a priest. Some people want to become a priest, but they might be better at being some other ministry in the church. The church needs, especially in this society, we need all these different ministries. Okay? We have, I mean, I'm very blessed. I thank God that I can get along so well with these guys. In fact, I get along better with you than I do with my own. Anyhow, I do. Anyhow, so yeah, I do. I understand them better than these. Anyhow, okay. So my point is that, going back to the main thing, when it says here in the epistle, just bear with me because I want to read this part to you. And the saying pleased the whole multitude, and they chose Stephen, a man of faith and the Holy Spirit, and Philip, Prochorus, Nicanor, Timon, Paramenes, and Nicholas, a proselyte from Antioch, whom they set before the apostles. Here it comes. And when they had prayed, they laid hands on them. It's an ordination. It's an ordination. Just for your information, in the Russian church, subdeacon is more of an ordination than it is in the Greek church. Okay? So, a lot of times in the Russian church, I don't know about in America, if you want to be a subdeacon, you need to if you're going to get married, you need to get married first. In the Greek tradition, you don't have to be married to become you could get married after subdeacon. You cannot get married after deacon. So if you're going to be a married deacon or priest, you need to get married first. Okay? And just as another side thing, when the bishop, and I've seen this happen, when these people come and they want to be celibate, it takes them longer to get ordained. You know why? The bishop is suspicious. No, I don't think any impropriety, but why don't you want to get married? Usually they're thinking that they probably want to become bishops. Nobody should seek to ever be a bishop. Okay? You should never seek to be a bishop. Okay? St. Basil, St. John, they ran away from becoming bishops. Okay? But the point is that when somebody tells you they want to be celibate, okay, don't think the nasty stuff. I'm just telling you, generally speaking, they want to make sure, because once they ordain them, they cannot get married. They can't come back and later on and say, oh, I changed my mind, I really want to get married.
They'd have to give up the priesthood.
They'd have to be defrocked. Okay, we had that happen with a priest. His wife died. This is your general information. If you are married and your wife dies, you cannot get married again, except if you have small children. The church says it's unkind, it's not charitable to let these children be raised without a mother. So what they will do is they will laicize the priest, put him back to being a layman, then they will let him get married, and then they will reordain him. This is not normal. This doesn't happen all the time. Very once in a while-ish, okay? But that's the proper procedure, and it's for that cause. It's not just like I'm lonely. Okay, well, it's the way it is. Any questions?
Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs bestowing life.
Christos anesti ec necron, thanaton patisas, cetis sentis mnimasi, zoin harisamenos.
To thee, O champion leader and trophy bearer, O Saint George, do we offer a hymn of praise.